Hello, and welcome back. Northstar here with another Hearts on 4. Got to download U.S. Socialist single player Let's Play. Did I say some of that twice? I think I did. Brain's always a little off with long COVID and the cold, although I've bundled up to 9, so I'm feeling a little warmer with insane numbers of layers, including an outside jacket on. Um, excuse me. Early spring, heat's not working here. Winters living in supposedly the wealthiest country in the world and getting fucked into living this way because family who's working, getting paid shit, capitalist exploitation, people aren't paid what they produce. Me, disabled SSDI, I've been screwed by the government. They did not give me credits for work I did for university while I was in grad school. That plus going back to grad school, the whole system is designed to screw over young people, particularly those who go to grad school and then get disabled a bit out of it or go back to grad school like I did. There's a certain viciousness in it, which was perpetrated partly with Republicans who seem to resent people actually getting education. They tell people to get an education, not take on debt, but they resent people actually doing those things. Like there was certainly no program available to help me move to other jobs in my field after I finished grad school. Um, I couldn't stay with family because they went back on deal, and one of them was having issues with renters. They were renting a room in their house at the time. Um, and went back on the deal of my coming to stay with them near a major city with their jobs in my field in the sciences. There's no like government program that can, help you resettle somewhere where there's jobs in your field, and employers never want to pay for relocation assistance. Even if you mention or if there's a box to check, they basically laugh at it. They never do it anymore. And where there's still a box, it's usually outdated and they haven't done it for decades, except in very special cases. So, yeah. Um, and then I got all sorts of nasty comments from right wing people because where I was living, rural area, it's just, oh, it was my fault for not having more money in hand. It's like I was doing financial conservatism. I was borrowing as little money as I could to get through grad school, putting money that I made from working into borrowing less than student loans, even. And because of this, I got screwed, stuck in a rural area by the time I could move. I'd been on my field too long, and so the student loans I was trying to minimize ended up capitalizing because I wasn't making shit, and I ended up owing more in the long run. Yeah, these assholes will screw you no matter what. But don't think the Democrats are better. This is the left wing of the GOP. Um, they just try and keep just enough of the population happy in just enough of the states that they can win just by majority some of the time of electoral votes some of the time while having a minority of the population support them. And very often, only because people are doing lesser of two evils, and even then, they are perfectly fine losing a number of elections. They don't really care to always win. They're not motivated to win. Yeah, Democrats suck. Republicans suck. The two-party system in the United States is a freaking travesty, and it's not real democracy, and the whole thing's an oligarchy. So I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off again. I have to keep coming at this with the lack of real democracy in the United States sliding into fascism. And this is pretty strong evidence that Marx was right, that capitalism always decays in these sort of things. He predicted exactly these trends. 150 plus years ago, he thought it would happen sooner, but then he couldn't have predicted World War II, which led to a bunch of concessions to the working class so they would get behind the war efforts. Anyways, let's get going. I'm building up. I've been trying to strengthen key parts of the front here. It looks like a lot of divisions, but a lot of them are horrendously under-equipped. Well, that will get me more on lease. If I don't want to lose ground or suffer massive casualties in the early stages of war, I need to try and reinforce the weakest divisions rather than deploy more, which is what I'm trying to do. Here and there, I might want like maybe one more division here, actually as engineers, and just try and get a better equipped division than I've done in the past. But most places I'm trying to reinforce, I'm probably going to stabilize around 72 divisions in the war, so most of them just strengthening existing ones. Let's go. As usual, some off-camera stuff, some purchase agreements on infantry equipment 1 that was for sale. which is the current standard up until 1939 tech. Bought Canadian, Belgian, and Dutch-made rifles. In hindsight, I probably should have sold fewer M1s, but it's hard to. I either have to kind of distribute them all or nothing. When I was trying to get a few divisions, they're like 2% equipped up to 30. If I enable them one stockpiles go all the way to 100%, it's hard to get exactly the level of equipment I want. And the divisions, and then, I can lend lease and production later to get them up to 100%. But, just key divisions, having the men out ahead of time, making it up to right. I can get more men trained up to regular. It takes longer, but with less equipment, and I can also, because once they reach regular normally, there's no more experience accruing division from exercises. It's not like they can get up to veteran or seasoned through exercises. They also can get heat acclimatization in certain areas, so that by the time the war breaks out, maybe they've even had a whole year or two summers if they're real lucky. Some of them were deployed by the summer of 36, so the south is hot, and I have to be wary of hot weather down there. Heat acclimatization make it easier to fight it. I've reduced the number of destroyers because I figure about with repairs I can get this one done, or I'll get this one done just after, or maybe not this one, but this I'll have, they can have up to really probably about 2 in production, so I'll have just these 2, the last 2, probably right before I get the MIO trait, and then I'll start on fleet destroyers. Which are really cost effective. I don't want those at first. Torpedo cruisers are more of a double win mechanic, I think I've explained. Less likely to get sunk in a fight, even if they provide less combat power, and they help keep the fleet size down and reduce weather penalties and provide range. Are also a little more cost effective against aircraft in terms of they have more HP per industry power, and aircraft don't care about the speed of a destroyer. They'll hit it just as easily as a torpedo cruiser. And if I want to exceed very minimal level of anti-air, provided it's cheaper to do that. Torpedo cruisers, of course, I'm making light cruiser variants. The heavy cruiser variants will have tons of anti-air and will be there to tank aircraft in large part. And I have to withdraw from the Land Naval Treaty for those, though. Their main guns are too big and they count as capital ships. Or why the torpedo cruisers make sense is because I'm not withdrawing from the Land Navy Treaty. So even if maybe better battleships, battle cruisers might have made more sense otherwise, it saves me the political power in that. Yeah, it's storming in Appalachia, so I've moved these guys down to Georgia. Sing myself a little. The devil went down in Georgia, so steal that old song. Yeah. Let's see, I'm doing reach out to the review focuses and reaching out to the WEAR group. Then I need the research slot. I can put off a little because there aren't a lot of great things to be putting a research slot into this very second. It's when you get close to 30, when you get into late 38, there's a lot of stuff because you can do 39 stuff a little ahead. If I had the slot now, I'd probably either be doing something useless or like taking a 39 tech way ahead of time. It's not useful. Probably Navy techs, but my Navy MIO isn't that important that I would want to delay this. So reach out to WEAR group, Scientific Research and Development Office. I might want to grab the Old Age Pension Act then, because I need it for Guaranteed American Treatment. I'm going to need that and the Selective Training Act, both, in order to probably go to war economy during my war. That plus Defense War give me a 47% war support, and with just a little bit from world tension, I get up to 50. This means I won't be mobilizing my economy the moment the war breaks out, unfortunately, but it's because I can't get the worst part. I don't want to waste it going to partial mobilization and do war economy later, especially when I'll eventually be going full total mobilization. Not during my war, but later. My multiplier game. So many nations went communist in the Caribbean because the British went communist and decolonized. I could just have gone total. I didn't do it there either because it would have had to increase conscription laws to make that work, and I didn't want to spend the political power on that. I had other demands on my political power. Might have been a bad decision, but here it's very clear I can't get the total mob realistically. But I can definitely get to war economy if I delay a little. Yes, this nonsense. June 30th. And that's only, there's 2 here, so I probably should put this here. Often don't mess with flipping around stuff. There's others in the queue. Well, sometimes I do. It doesn't always make sense because overflow goes into next in the queue. Anyways, once Missouri's infrastructure is done, I can start in these. Probably after all this, I'll just be doing infrastructure because undisturbed isolation does not slow infrastructure build rate, but it does factory build rate. Preparing infrastructure for when I go to war economy by that point. I should do that right after these, or maybe do a few more of these infrastructure factory combos first. We'll see. This is Shatter the Empires. Speaking of empires, we got National Spain getting crushed by the Republic, slowly but surely. It'd be good if before the Republic ends up taking masters their own fate. Communists, the POUM rising up in Catalonia. If Catalonia is taken from the nationalists, otherwise it creates issues. And indeed, the Republic might well end up doing united under socialism. Before they do Masters Own Fate, they could do that. Theoretically, it should reduce the semi-autonomous state spirit in Catalonia. So hopefully they take Catalonia back soon. War continues in Italy. Mussolini is slowly losing. I think he's just lost Bologna. He'll lose Ferrara. And Genoa soon enough. Milan. It's weird. I mean, I guess they didn't choose the factory workers version of the uprising. Turin was one of the places where there was some of the strongest communist movements in all of Italy. This is a well-known fact. There were Turin, and to a lesser degree Lugano, but Turin during the 2 Red Years in Italy, which many people have not heard of because the U.S. has tried to erase this in the history books, basically, because then people would start asking if there's such strong support for communism, what happened, and people have to discuss how Mussolini crushed the socialists and how fascism does that, and then, all the right-wing U.S. dictatorships that were fascist throughout the whole war that crushed fascists, and also how the U.S. went and funded far-right militias after World War II in Italy to crush the remaining communists who had survived Mussolini's reign of terror. They didn't have to survive a U.S. reign of terror with I forget what it was, but it was like a stay-behind operation. It was theoretically army militias to resist a Soviet invasion, but in actuality, guns were given to these far-right militias knowing that and encouraging them subtly, like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, to use them against communists in Italy. And then at the same time, the CIA was doing these things to root out communists, as people don't have a right to have political opinions that went against the U.S. during the Cold War. So yeah, this kind of thing happened in Italy, Greece, Turkey. People were not free to choose their own fate. They were forcefully, through CIA fuckery and assassinations, brought into the capitalist world. Heck, there were even some socialists who died in suspicious car accidents in France and Belgium that may have been CIA assassination jobs. Oh shoot, I was going to change that army spirit, wasn't I? Here I am getting pissed about the CIA and its evil. And they are freaking evil. I guess if there's one more thing I would create, it's a smaller port brigade. It says engineers because it's defense is a low artillery for a little extra. It's kind of weak to send a port, but if it gets extra support coming in the future, something like this would be holding a port with very few men. I've created so many divisions. You have no idea how many are marked obsolete right now. That might someday be pulled out. And this is obsolete for the moment. That's not... Alright, time for a leaf of command. Should have done that yesterday. We missed one day. That could be worth it if it got one of you to even think critically about the CIA stuff. Or what's going on in the world now. People, I mean, Trump has gotten rid of U.S. aid for the most part, and the TSA is going on an attack against it, and he's getting rid of the Department of Education. It's very funny to see the lipshits, the centrist Democrat assholes who really don't give a shit about ordinary people, to see which of these agencies that come out defensive. It's not the Department of Education that helps millions afford education. No, it's the TSA, the organization, the fascistic organization that was greatly damaging our civil liberties, all of Homeland, all these agencies Bush created that were moving us, sorry, not fascistic, but moving us towards authoritarianism in the U.S., invading our liberties, and it's nothing but security theater. TSA does not keep us safe from terrorist attacks. And so it's the TSA that come out to defend, not the Department of Education, not like the attack on Health and Human Services, not even the attack on the Small Business Administration. It's the TSA, and to a lesser degree, greater degree, there's always a sample size error in these kind of things. Hold on, I can't think over this. USAID, which the liberals are coming out to stand praise of USAID, which historically, I think I explained, taught torture to the police services on like Uruguay, Paraguay, Argentina, and funded the Guatemalan genocide against the Mayan people, funded the training of police who were helping to carry it out and maintain order in the cities when there was protests against the genocide, and in Nicaragua funded the Contras, who were far-right militias, including like literally providing food aid to the families of death squads so that the death squads didn't have to worry about their families and food. Not ordinary civilians. It wasn't like they were feeding everyone. They got some of it. They like were specifically targeting food aid there. And in India, LBJ, which withheld food aid from India when there was a famine going on until the Indian government agreed to stop criticizing the Vietnam War. Yeah, USAID is a terrorist organization. They are just fucking evil to their core. And I do not weep for Trump getting rid of them. Hopefully, when the U.S. brings back a foreign aid organization under a future left-wing president, if there is still a future left-wing president, we don't end up in fascism. Hopefully, it'll be an organization that isn't tainted by this history of just the atrocious shit that USAID has done. But, the liberals are weeping for USAID and the TSA, and not for the Department of Education, not for Health and Human Services coming under attack. I mean, there's people like A More Perfect Union. You think he's left-leaning, and then he's doing this shit. These YouTubers and these pundits, they're showing their true colors. Take note. Liberals will always come out on the side of fascism. In the end, it will always come out, if they do criticize it, in favor of defending the most authoritarian things, just because it's not their brand of fascism. It's, ugh. This is part of why I'm a socialist. Liberals suck. I grew up in a very conservative community, and liberal is practically a curse word, and I came to realize these people hated just because they were so right-wing. Liberals do suck. They weren't wrong about that. They were right to say those damn liberals. But it's not because conservatives are better. It's because, well, the real progress lies in the way of socialism. All right. Too much equipment's going to that battalion. Whatever. I guess extra equipment doesn't hurt when it's going to be merged into a really weak, really under-equipped division. It's got plenty of men already trained, or, well, not trained, actually. 11.7 defense. 9.3. 28.8. This little exercise brigade's the most equipped, but the 42nd Infantry will probably need another 1,000 men. Arsenal of Democracy, here we go. Nice noble song. But yeah. People try and say, oh, you're a socialist. That must mean you defend everything Soviet Union did or some bullshit. No. No, we can have a better world. If the socialism may have arisen in the Soviet Union because that's where capitalism was least well established. But the countries that have the best democratic traditions that could give us the most actually democratic socialism would be places like the United States. Heck, even Marx alluded to the fact that socialism could be established via democratic means in the US or the UK at his era. And if he was looking at today, he'd probably say it was hopeless in those countries. But read, I think it was one of his letters to the First International, where Marx was briefly like a co-chair of it or something. He writes about this. I've quoted this at people back when I used to use right before I left that fascist-infested, anarchist-infested, corporate-controlled slime pit, cesspit. Not by choice, actually. There was a piece of shit who was just swearing at someone, and I said, civility, get lost, NATO troll, because I looked at his post history, and the guy was quoting. You get to recognize the paid trolls after a while. He was just going, criticizing anyone, attacking anyone who criticized NATO, and he was like literally just swearing at them. Like, so I said, civility, get lost, NATO troll. Then a moderator on the thread came and started swearing at me about stuff I didn't even say, because he was apparently mixing up with another user, the one the guy was swearing at. Or he thought he could just assume that somehow I was an alt account of that guy, which I absolutely wasn't. And even after realizing I was a different version, he was still like, oh, well, you still have to do whatever I say. This guy could not comprehend that he made a mistake and like he needed to apologize. And then I reached out to other moderators. I'm like, this guy's being toxic, and he's still refusing to go back on temporary ban on your, or was it permanent from that committee? I don't remember. After he swore at me for something I didn't even do, and I didn't do anything wrong, I just called out and this is like supposedly a left-leaning subreddit, so nothing I did was out of the norms of that sub. But there's fascists who go and try and take over, and right-wingers and government trolls take over left-wing subs, and that's what this sub was in the process. So after this experience and so, I reach out to other moderators. I'm like, this guy is swearing at me. I haven't done anything wrong. He's literally swearing at me in the mod messages. I'm being respectful of him. And rather than whatever fascists taking over the sub, rather coming down on their moderator, they report that to Reddit, and Reddit banned me for harassment when all I did was say, look, this guy's swearing at me. I wasn't harassing anyone. But Reddit has been taken over by corporate shells. There's literally Jessica Ashew, who used to like work for the National Security Council or some bullshit. She was an advisor in Qatar for like she was based in Qatar, but she advised on like the U.S. invasion of Iraq and dealing with the insurgency. She's like completely connected to the security state. She's one of the chief people on Reddit now. I mean, these social media platforms are constantly filled with security state shells and also people from USAID. That's another place which is basically just an extension of the U.S. government's arms of political and social control. Keep in mind, USAID also funds all this pro-American media around the world and pretends it's neutral and independent media. It's not. With the USAID money being frozen, if you saw how many newspapers were suddenly crying out for money are about to shut down, it's because these were all secretly funded by the U.S. government through USAID. I mean, sometimes it's an open secret. Sometimes you can even trace the money to it, but it's ridiculous. Though often it's not direct. It's like through this organization, through USAID. Sometimes they try and disguise the money trail. Not always. So yeah, and they tried to like, look, this is the message I sent. You can see I'm not rude anywhere, and they just weren't answering. But now, if I was in the EU, I would have the right to arbitration with something like this, and Reddit would have gotten their shit kicked in because I did nothing wrong. But in the US, they're free just to ban anyone for any reason, even if the person did nothing wrong or was getting harassed by a moderator. Or maybe they even meant to ban the moderator for harassment and accidentally banned me, knowing the incompetence and how overworked their people are. But, you know, I did nothing but tell a guy who was swearing at someone he was being uncivil. And then when that moderator started swearing at me for saying that to a person who was swearing at someone, mind you, messaged other listed admirers in the sub and said, this guy's being rude to me. Please look at his messages. Please consider. He was probably the one who reported my reaching out, since I know which moderator it was. With the MyMail, you don't know who is messaging you. So he got a message about his own behavior, and he reported it before the other moderators could ding him, probably. The other ones are probably AWOL. It's probably the thread was targeted for takeovers, because most of the moderators hadn't been active in a long time. So usually that goes. I had seen many subs taken over by government shells or far-right fascist types. Another armory raided? Jeez. This one in Virginia. This event, I never saw it in the US-Mexico multiplayer game. I've seen it twice here now. This is why, again, I kept some rifles in reserve. But that's enough rifles to equip an entire division. That's obnoxious bullshit. After the first time, you would think they would have tightened security. There's too many fascist sympathizers, though, who are secretly making sure the rifles get stolen. As the event says, that it's even suspected that it was an inside job. It is. It's the whole point of the event. Dirty fascist sympathizers. Who want, again, a civil war because I dare to tax the rich and work towards desegregating the South. That's what they're really afraid of. Give unions, make sure that they have some say in the government, which is like literally the post-World War II compromise that was reached in Germany, where unions are given representation. The Government Union Representation Act is not out of democratic norms at all, and it's just spitting in the eye of the very rich who think they own the government. And I've avoided even once doing the decision reshuffle Congress, which is what should actually, if it was about preserving democracy, that's what should actually stimulate far-right protests, and power to them if someone's actually abusing the law like that, but I haven't abused the law. Alright. 13th Infantry are pretty weak. Might struggle to hold here. Have to strengthen them. Okay, these guys are even weaker, and they don't have a stronger division next to them. God. So many super under-equipped divisions in Oklahoma. I'm distributing out some of the rifles. They're just being distributed out with men. And Given how under-equipped these guys are, I think I'm gonna have to start enabling them ones in these battalions. the most that can only add 100 rifles to the division, so it's not overkill. It's not too much. Shadow of the Empires. Cool. Need 4 for production here. You know what? No. I should do 5 today and less tomorrow. I can probably cancel chromium imports tomorrow. Work at a slight chromium shortage on the finishing touches on the ship. Find whatever scrap metal, I guess. Metal scraps that may have a little chromium in them. We'll manage. Yep, because I can run a -2 chromium shortage. It's not that big a deal. These guys are all have 100 rifles now. Which means all the Springfields go this. Tomorrow I can add a battalion equipped with 100 rifles here. This division. I've got foreign rifles coming in. That'll strengthen things soon too. There we go. The Wichita is complete. I believe this was added to the heavy cruiser squad. It's like the Pensacola class. It's a little faster than some of them. It's like just this lone anti-air focused cruiser, or rather just a cruiser with better anti-air than some. Right, the port ones are meant to keep up with torpedo cruisers. These need repairs. Trying to get ships more topped off for repairs as the Civil War gets closer. Alright, these guys in Oklahoma definitely need the rifles, so this essentially adds. What? This is a way I can just get rid of them ones and stockpile most of them. I could, but then I have people in training longer in this. Oh, they say they get out of training quicker. They shut it. I do not like that song one bit. Yeah, there's only 100 that goes in each of these. I could just train up a ton. Just use this to reinforce a lot of divisions. It still leaves me 4.3k. Alright. Time to do that. No more severely under-equipped divisions. None of that. It's time to distribute the more modern rifles, even though they'll start getting lots of exercises immediately. They should merge with the 40th Infantry. guys with 14k, they'll probably might just turn to 14.6 infantry or auxiliaries 14.3, maybe 15.3 with more. I have so much support equipment. You know what? Sometimes get those events back to back. But just keep 2,000 rifles and stockpile. There we go. A whole bunch more men in training now. Should have done that earlier. Remember? Shoulda, woulda, coulda. Morning. Or remembering things I planned before and forgot. It's a decent song. I like it. Twilight of the Gods. My fingers are cold here. I'm trying to build this YouTube channel. Enough subscribers to where I can potentially make ad money off of it. Help me to survive. So if you care about the fact I'm freezing here, want to help, subscribe if you haven't. You can always turn off notifications if getting too much stuff from me, but if you're watching this, I'm assuming you like watching my channel, so it's helpful all the way around. YouTube algorithm will show you more of my stuff. You can tweak how much more. I'll have some money, so I might be able to help the family I'm staying with to afford fixing the heating system. The system is brutal, oppressive. Less and less does it actually make help available to people they need. Mind you, the family I'm staying with is working poor. Is working, just can't afford to fix the heat. It's working more than 40 hours a week. Americans work more than almost any other nation on Earth. Most of any developed nation. Even more in Japan, which is infamous for its overwork. Think about that for a second. Americans work more hours a week than Japanese. And yet so many people are suffering. It's not because of racial minorities, it's not because of foreign aid, it's because of capitalism. All the shit Trump says is just distract you from capitalism is the real culprit. He serves the interests of the ruling class. Very much. Keeping the number of divisions under control and instead starting things is once has other benefits like allowing a larger percentage of my forces to be commanded by one general. Or more of them under the best one for a given type of mission. So if I have to go under a suboptimal general for a particular role. I'm not feeling that song. Definitely not feeling that one. Here we go. It's barbed wire. Too many of these songs try to be air quote epic. When everything tries to be epic, nothing is epic. Twilight of the Gods is one of those songs. Also, there's kind of weirdness into it, implying that the great colonial powers were gods? That's insane. Far too often, Hearts Iron 4 gets into making excuses for and glamorizing imperialism. I mean, I get why a little bit, because I think it'd be more cool, but empires do horrendous things. There's pretty much been hardly any empires, for instance, in the history of Earth that haven't done genocides. It's a thing that empire after empire after empire does. The British, the French, the Belgians, the Dutch, the Germans, American Empire. if it's an empire and it's it's at least pre-socialist, and even the Soviets did a couple massacres, but there's no evidence of them invading a country and then specifically trying to kill the people off just to enforce empire. The one great famine they had was more in an area that had long been part of the Russian Empire, areas that had long been part of the Russian Empire, like Ukraine and Kazakhstan, and it affected Central Russia, which is very much the core of the Russian Empire, too. In fact, that area was pretty hard hit. Although, because it was closer to the capital, it got more food aid, and people didn't starve to death there, but the shortfall in food production was actually very severe there, too. And while it was bad and racism greatly contributed to it, it wasn't quite the same as, say, the British going and starving the Bengals in the Bengal famine just so the Japanese wouldn't get their hands on a well-nourished population, or in Iran, because the British and Soviets co-occupied Iran during World War II, and the British also occupied Iran during World War I. In both wars, the British occupied areas suffered giant famines. The British did this to try and starve the Iranians into submission, which is the classic genocidal empire thing, is starve the conquered population into submission. Which the Iranians, the French, let's see, other empires have done that at times. The Roman Empire, way back. The Belgians, the Congo, much of what considered Congo can really be considered starving a population into submission. A newly conquered population in most of these cases. And of course, what happened in the Soviet Union was driven partly by British sanctions on the Soviets. The Soviets weren't allowed to use money to buy industrial equipment, so they had to pay for it in food, timber, and metals. And keep in mind, food. And they need industrial machinery to make more industrial machinery and to ultimately make weapons so they can fight the Nazis. Stalin correctly predicted in 1931 that it was 10 years till the Soviets the West would try and crush them, which 10 years later, Nazis invaded. Exactly 10 years later. In fact, there's even a thing on TV tropes talking about how this trope was precisely correct. This historical trope. It's kind of weird to see on TV tropes, but I stumbled across that. But it's true. They were invaded 10 years later, so they were desperately trying to industrialize, foreseeing what was coming. And the British wouldn't let them spend money. So while racism and slow, inefficient government all played into food aid and relaxation of food quotas not going where they should have quick enough, none of it would have happened. The British should just let them use money, gold and coin, because they would have had all these gold reserves in the czars, which the British called stolen money and said, you can't use that to buy machinery. If the Soviets had just been able to use that, they would have never been paying for machinery with food, and determined to make their payment schedules not fall behind on them and lose access to even that machinery that they were able to get. That highly exploitative deal. Obviously, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze, and the Soviets fucked up, but the whole situation of food quotas only existed because of the British. Keep that in mind. Food export quotas were to meet contracts with the British to buy industrial machinery so that they could stop the Nazis eventually from coming and conquering them. They didn't know it was specifically going to be Nazis, but they knew it would be something like that. And something almost genocidal, and they predicted that to a T. The Nazis were genocidal and invaded. So they had it precisely correct. That they were going to be invaded and genocided soon. If they didn't industrialize, they would lose. Put another, let's see, defense values. 28, 26, 25. Yeah, I think the 40th Infantry could be upgraded to something larger division size. Got 84 width here if they're attached in 2 directions on 5. Keep in mind, I'm not making excuses for the shit that happened. Racism played a huge role. Racism is always bad. Of course, keep in mind also the Soviets tried to stamp out racism, and some of the people who did the worst actions were sent to the gulags for what happened. This wasn't just throwing someone under the bus. They were determined to have been responsible for starving people to death in Ukraine, and some of them were sent to the gulags for it. Some of the local bureaucrats. Justice may be slow sometimes, but sometimes it comes, at least in a system that's trying to have some kind of justice, unlike the U.S., which says, you know, to people, for instance, who become disabled, you worked all these years, but this job was for a religious institution, this job was for a university. I didn't work for a religious institution, but that's one of the other exemptions. So fuck you, none of it counts, and you don't get disability. I know you're expecting it, but screw you. That's the kind of way the U.S. government acts. It's not devoted to justice anymore, if it ever was. Soviets at least tried to do some kind of justice, even though it was a very vengeful justice. It was very common to put to death people who'd committed certain crimes. It was harsh justice, excessively harsh. It would have been good if they had given the death penalty less often to criminals. I am not a fan of the death penalty. Fuck! Amelia Earhart disappears. The famous aviator Amelia Earhart, the first woman to complete a solo flight across the Atlantic, has disappeared along with her navigator, Fred Noonan, near Howland Island in the middle of the Pacific. The two were attempting a flight around the entire world in their twin-engine Lockheed Electra plane when they vanished. A search for the missing aviators is now being conducted by the U.S. Navy and Coast Guard. There's little hope of finding them. Yeah. If she survives, she gets like a medal, and the U.S. can potentially make her a fighter ace. But yeah, that happened. History repeated itself, unfortunately. Some things would be better if it never happened, like obviously certain famines or Earhart crashing, or a lot of things. Hindenburg history is littered with small and large tragedies. Like, so. I figure it's just a moment, a matter of time until some right-wing fascist types come to my channel and troll me over things I'm saying. But I am trying very quickly to make clear what I'm saying, what I'm not saying. Not that it'll matter to those types. Anyways. Soviet Union is always treated with a dual standard. The things they do bad are exaggerated or made worse than what anyone else did. And by like exaggerate, like all of them are terrible. Some people will claim it killed 6 million people. That's an outright lie, and it's a fascist lie. The actual number was what, 3.5, 2.5 million, in that range, starved to death. Terrible, not 6 million. So there's nothing that's too holy, including mass death for these people and dishonoring the dead by lying about their number. And communists have, I'm convinced, no morals left in them. People are scum. They'll do anything and then convince it themselves it's okay by, oh, communists are bad. No, actually, the way you assholes act is what is far worse than anything socialists have ever done. I mean, you make excuses for Nazis, you glamorize Hitler, who killed how many people? 25 million dead because of him. 6.5 million in the Holocaust. 4.5 million Soviet and other Slavic peasants who were just murdered by the Nazis, often by famine genocide. More than died in the Holocaust, keep in mind, were starved to death by Nazis, and that famine genocide is never even talked about. It shows a dual standard. Apparently Slavic lives don't matter unless they're standing up to the Soviet Union, and what went on in Ukraine wasn't about standing up to the Soviet Union either, but it's misconstrued as that. to create an anti-communist narrative. It's not based in reality. But if a group can be portrayed as victims of communism, that's the only time that their lives matter to these fucks. 40% equipment. This is just a running total. 674 support. 636. I might want to pull it right before the Civil War. I'm not sure if stuff on here gets divided up. I keep normal stockpiles, I know. I should have kept track of that in the multiplayer game, whether I was losing half that. Alright, July 9th. The USS Dunlap completes. To try and avoid overflow on that. After the Mugford, well, when the Mugford and Bagley are being worked on, we'll probably have Newport News will be upgraded. Yeah, anyone who ever dies, famine, anything, it's always a tragedy. Never should happen anywhere in the world. The way it's politicized by the far right, especially by the U.S., by the bastards like William Randolph Hearst, who was a Nazi sympathizer and partly responsible for the way things are twisted. Though what do we give newspaper columns to Goering and Mussolini? So was it Goering or someone in Hitler's administration? And Mussolini. So it's pretty obvious what he was up to there. Yeah, Hearst and Ford, like Otto Ford, were terrible anti-Semitic, Nazi-sympathizing pricks, both of them. The fact that they're held up as heroes by some, especially Ford, just is disgusting. I mean, Churchill was also a hateful, racist, misogynist, imperialistic piece of shit who, in his journals, it's clear he sympathized with Nazi philosophy. But he talked about wanting to see an elephant stamp on Gandhi's head. That's the kind of person Churchill was. How would it take these guys to entrench if I stop them exercising? No, I think I can turn these into a 16.6k. Exercise assault. No, I'll give them another division, another battalion. That's why I didn't do that, because they need more breakthrough. Some more troops in this Oklahoma area. Actually, this one first. 3 days. Churchill was a prick. Dishonor to everything the Allies stood for. FDR was a much better role model. Of course, he's not used as a role model because he dared to do left-wing things like the New Deal. So he's not up as a role model because the billionaires who manipulate media narratives in history don't want, you know, what the right-wing think tanks, the Heritage Foundation shit, don't want FDR to be a hero, so they make Churchill a hero. Evil bastard Churchill was. Not the person who deserved it, FDR. Dunlap with no overflow. Tomorrow I can reinforce that. Almost an hour, so I'm going to be cutting this soon. So I'm in a sour mood today, I know. Being freezing cold does not help my mood, to say the least. Nobody should have to suffer this. Cool. Let's just keep the training useful a little longer. More rifles, that means more breakthrough. More soft attack. More efficient attack, basically. Shot division is definitely going to need that. It's going to be a lot. And I'll risk. Promise if I get 2 of those events back to back. More producing. Takes almost a week to get over 1,000 again with them ones. So we get 2 events within a week. It's incredibly unlikely though, isn't it? Ah, Swedish Solicitude. Good song. An awful lot of repairs going on. No? Huh. USS Hull. It's a ship in Miami. I wish they wouldn't repair in Norfolk and Miami. It'll get disrupted if the Civil War breaks out right away. Whatever. Slowly getting air experience from pilot exercises, which will eventually allow this branch independent spirit. Get a lot more when the Civil War breaks out in dogfights and bombing runs, but the sooner I get that, the more air XP I get passively over game. I don't even have an air chief, and I really can't afford the political powerful one, especially with how I don't have the industry for much of an air force. Just yeah, relative to my huge airspaces, it's just not cost effective. Many places, when the men don't even have rifles yet. Of course, knowing these guys actually, this air base is considered in the middle of Appalachia. Maybe it's better than I thought. It's worth noting every one of these designs except this has bomb locks and can actually switch to close air support if there's enough divisions in combat. So between that and people based in Oklahoma, be able to provide substantial air support in the west where all the fighting will be. That's kind of low. Put the Quincy in for training. Queued up. So something less important won't get thrown in ahead of it. Enable more. How many ships do I have in queue? Looks like 11. I'm gonna throw in a couple more heavy cruisers. Minneapolis. Astoria. New Orleans and Augusta. Don't repair in Virginia. What yay. Go to Philly. That'll remain loyal to the Union. Keep all 8 repair slots in Philly in use. Jobs in Philly in the shipyard industry. Dangerous jobs, some important work. Heavy water. Fun. The 6th Infantry need another battalion for sure. Let's see with a few divisions I have lined up here. Do Little Rock. Might want to add more in that. Yeah, these guys should probably not be under Fredendall. Actually, put it on MacArthur. Because I'm probably going to make a real move east right away. Oklahoma's starting to be a little crushed for supplies here. Does it take 7 hours? I'll get there in time. It's actually hotter here. It's per Arkansas. Good. Or Missouri. I say Arkansas. That's Arkansas. Probably put them in Springfield because it borders 2 areas. Could be attacked from 2 sides. Greater enemy force. Springfield, Missouri. Reminds me of Simpsons. Going to Springfield. Which one? There's so many Springfields in the U.S. I'll take a slightly bigger risk as the war gets closer. More rebels, more men deployed. Battleships take ages to repair. And New Mexico. Time to start getting that repairing. Guess it's near Boston. Yep. Whiffed off nothing. Scandinavian Summer Suite. There we go. Of course, all the best songs go to Scandinavian countries in this game. Since the devs are Swedish. Or at least their parent company is. It's a little bit of egotism there. minimizes overflow. I'll go right to Missouri factories. Who joined the Axis? Sweden. I forget where they possibly get a decision to replace their... Yeah, I often will join the faction that I stay in though, so I suspect I have to deal with Sweden. Allying with the Nazis. Great. Possibly UK and Japan too. If I had some spies, I could try a color revolution to get rid of this guy. Of course, that would probably just lead the Nazis to helping them crush it. What a... Well, there's gonna be no mercy, but there's gonna be... Unfortunately, the wrath of my military is gonna have to fall on them now. Later, after I'm done dealing with the Neo-Confederates. Pricks. No compromise on crushing the Nazis. They are evil beyond measure. And must be dealt with, and soon. If I was not flipping ideology, I'd be able to do limited intervention much sooner and actually, you know, interfere with the Nazi snowball before they get too big. But I'm stuck. Between a rock and a hard place. Said I'm gonna set a rock like Iraq, like the country the US invaded for no reason. Cool. Arrived just before midnight. Cost me. Let's see. Need to get everything here done and quickly. I want it to be usable. More. Alright. This sub needs to go repair. Soon we'll be moving subs to the Caribbean. Yeah, Boston, that's the native support. Oh, the Saratoga needs repairs. Also Boston. Lots of jobs there, I guess. Repairing the ships. People, the workers. Capitalism, of course, and abundance of jobs helps keep the labor market tight and wages high. A social system. People get paid the full value of their work regardless of how tight the labor market is. Which also means you need more welfare systems to support, because there would be more investment automation from earlier and higher unemployment, but actual labor will be treated more closer to its full value. People get more leisure time, and in the long run, well, the Soviet Union actually had a labor shortage in the long run. So they invested heavily in productivity, although not heavily enough. There's this economist, Paul Koksha. I know his name is ridiculous, but he talks about how because too much of the revenue of the state-owned corporations, stand-owned enterprises, to call it what they call in China now, so it's recognizable some. Because maybe I have a Chinese viewer, who knows. Huge amounts of the revenue were diverted into, the government budget, which some of which went to military, and a lot went to subsidies and welfare programs, including to subsidize people who are actively working. It would have been far more economically efficient if the Soviets just did what socialism calls for and ended exploitation by paying the workers the full value of their work, as instead just set wages higher and then raise government revenues through saying higher taxes. The Soviet Union actually tried to phase out taxes, which some people are like, yay, no taxes, but it's actually taxes serve an important economic purpose, which is what this guy argues, and he was probably correct. He's a socialist economist, keep in mind. He's criticizing the mistakes the Soviet Union made and how they plan their economy, that, of course, it's not that planning is inherently flawed and all that nonsense. But you have to make the right decisions, or else you're going to suffer. This is the old MP with the guy who's never going to show back up, that one. American MP. I should probably just delete those in some of the older saves. Alright. 74 minutes. This has been a long enough video. I hope you folks all enjoyed this video. Hope my talk about random things or whatever came across my mind wasn't too much. Viewers, I wish you all the best. Take care of each other. Be kind to yourselves, and may always find a guiding star to lead you home. And until next time, this is Northstar. Adieu, and best wishes. Good luck.